I think that it's really important for reviewers to have a conversation with manufacturers, to have a dialogue about not only the products, but also the future concepts that might impact the audiophile community. I am a big fan of OLLO Audio. I find their products very interesting and also their customer service outstanding. That's the reason why I invited Rock Gullic from OLLO Audio to an interview. This is our, I believe, second or third recorded interview, and just like the past ones, we're going to discuss things about their newest headphone, the S5X, and the future of their company. Join me as we not only discuss their newest headphones, but also the ethos behind this company, and, for good measure, a little bit of frustration that this company has had to deal with over the years. That being said, I hope you enjoyed this discussion, and I also hope that you give OLLO Audio a good consideration, because I think it's really important for us to support small companies that do their best for their customers and provide something that is unique. Enjoy.
There we go. Working.
Are we ready to go?
All right. Ready
Perfect.
to go.
Rock, thank you very much for having this interview with me. I appreciate your time.
You're welcome.
So I'm sure that the vast majority of the people who watch my channel already are familiar with your company, OLLO Audio. And most recently, you announced, I think about a month and a half ago, your newest headphone, which is the S5X. And
Yep.
this is a transition into a different type of headphone that's geared towards a bit more of studio use. Is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, we've always been pro audio oriented, so we are only making stuff or designing stuff with pro consumer in mind, creators, artists, multimedia professionals, and obviously 9 out of 10 customers are just mixing and mastering engineers. And we've been doing that with the 4 series. Now with the 5, we are basically answering their requests. So there was a ton of emails coming in, asking, can we use the S4X model in immersive mixing? For example, Dolby Atmos or Sony 360 or whatever. And the answer is, well, yeah, it's a binaural renderer there, so you can use whatever headphones you want. So S4X being flat and neutral will be fine. And as this, kind of moved on, we learned that there are specific requirements for successful immersive mixing. So if you are familiar with that, or your viewers, you would have a stereo room or a stereo studio with a specific tuning and speaker placement and so on. And the same goes for the immersive studio. Again, there is a specific placement and specific tuning for the immersive experience. Let's just call it flat for immersive, right? So that sparked a research question. What kind of headphones should we design to fulfill that need for mixing immersive using headphones? And we dived quite deeply into that, and we've learned that the way humans perceive audio, spatial audio, is slightly different between a room or a headphone playback device. And when we went, really deep into that, we've learned that the tuning for headphones to really deliver the transition between speakers and a headphone mix in immersive, of course, is kind of like different, specifically in the high end. And also, I mean, the whole frequency response is slightly different, but mostly on the high end. So to keep it like shorter, for stereo mixing, it's great to have kind of mid-forward playback device, specifically headphones, which has been true and proven by the S4X or the HD600 series and so on, which are trusted by many people, right? So that is a stereo. But on the immersive side, we actually localize sound around us better when we can hear the high-end more directly. And that is the difference with a room tuning, which is actually slightly more dull or more on the warm side in comparison to headphones. I was a little bit long, I'm sorry, yeah.
No, that's great. You answered at least the first couple of my questions. So one of the things that I've found from a number of my viewers is that they get an impression from marketing from other companies, and
Mhm.
other companies say we have the flattest tuning or we have the right tuning for mixing and mastering, and then they get all sorts of celebrities to endorse that.
Mhm.
I see a lot of confusion, and I certainly face it myself, as to how to determine what is the truest audio that you can get from the original recording. And I'm not quite sure anybody's ever going to replicate that because they're not sitting in the studio. But how should people approach that sort of analysis if they're looking at your headphone versus another company's headphone that makes certain promises that are similar to yours? So what factors should they be considering?
Well, I'll be completely frank, right? So we can talk about the technical sides of so-called flatness, right? And whatever that means for different companies, different research labs, and so on. But there's the softer side of it, which is just you're listening to music, you should enjoy it. And we all hear differently, obviously, just technically differently. But obviously, we also have different taste and different experience, which is something that is many times neglected. And we should always try and find a playback device that feels right and feels good for whatever you're doing. Now, technically speaking, if we just go to the physics side of audio, whenever there is a masking effect happening or is close to a masking effect, obviously that frequency response can still be enjoyable, can still be fun, but it will technically stray you away if you're a mixing engineer. Now that happens in a headphone roughly at 3 dB, 2.5 dB kind of amplitude difference between the frequencies that can mask each other, which is primarily in an octave band, right? So if you're having 100 hertz and 200 hertz, if the 200 hertz will be 3 dB higher in amplitude, they will start to mask the 100 hertz. So you can't really mix the 100 hertz anymore because the 200 hertz are just overpowering. So that's just the technical perspective, which you cannot avoid. And whatever company you're going to choose or go to or explore deeply, that should be your guide. So whenever they say we have something flat, you should consider, is it really technically flat? That would be the first thing. So if you see those kind of things like a frequency response going beyond 3 dB on an octave scale, then it's going to be hard to believe that no masking will happen. Now, on a side note, to make this a little bit more complicated, we don't hear all the frequencies with the same detail, and we also don't hear them all. We're basically on the threshold, right? So I'm talking about Fletcher and Munson and the ISO 226, which is the equal loudness contours. So basically saying something like 400 hertz or 800 hertz, our ear will start to pick 800 hertz a lot easier and sooner and better than the 400. So there are these two components. One is just basic physics of sound waves, how they work and how they cancel each other and how one can overpower the other one. But then on the flip side, we have this psychoacoustic moment, which should be considered as well. And when you put these two together, then you can actually make an educated decision whether a product or a brand or whatever promise made is actually hitting the road.
Earlier on, you had mentioned that your company is oriented specifically towards professional use, and that you've had professionals use the S4 and ask for implementation into binaural audio and having a more immersive experience. Does your headphone, the new S5X, would that work with third-party immersive applications? For example, I think there's an application that Audeze uses from Embody. It's called Immerse Studio.
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody has that application, will they have an ability to combine it with your new headphone?
Yeah, sure. So to be perfectly clear, the S5X are not Dolby enabled per se, right? So these headphones don't play back the Dolby files. They don't do any spatialization. There's no DSP, there's nothing. It's just a headphone with a cable, right? So same principle as any other headphone. Everything happens in the renderer, in the software, or if you're using a phone, you will have a Dolby Atmos. Many phones will have Dolby Atmos like feature there. And everything actually happens in this device. It's just pushing stereo signals left and right into these headphones. So why they are suitable or compatible with that is that the frequency response of these was specifically researched and tuned to match the frequency response of a certified studio. And with that, we enable the transition between the two systems.
I think something happened with the internet.
Yeah.
All right. Sorry. I had asked you about Immerse Studio, and you had said yes, it is possible to combine the software with your headphone.
Yes. Yeah. I'm not sure where we were interrupted, but in short, just as any other headphone, they will just play back whatever signal comes through the cable. So there is no DSP, there is no rendering happening in the headphones. They are not Dolby enabled per se. They're just compatible in terms of frequency response. So this frequency response matches the frequency response of a certified studio really closely. And that is what enables the translation of a mix between a studio and a headphone experience.
I've had a couple of people ask me to ask you whether you have any intention, your company has any intention of releasing more consumer-based headphones in the future, maybe headphones that follow the Harman target curve or have a different tuning that's more balanced or more bassy. Anything that they can expect in the far future or near future?
Definitely not in the near future. In far future, who knows? We will continue to answer whatever the marketplace requires from us to do. Primarily, we are working with professional audio applications. So it's hard for me to promise or say something like never. It's possible. Obviously, we could technically manufacture a Harman target curve or whatever target curve. But honestly, I think that we will stay true to our mission, which is basically enabling audio engineers to mix in whatever room they are, to take their reference system with them from one studio to another, and fully rely on what they are hearing on this system rather than a studio that they're meeting or they're in for the first time.
So I have an expounding question based off of everything that we've already discussed, and it's a kind of a long question, so hopefully you'll bear with me.
Yeah.
Keeping in mind that your S5X is specifically designed for professionals, and we know that professionals, especially people who work in the studio, rely heavily on speakers, and they have all sorts of speakers from KEF to Focal to Sony to Canto. I mean, all along the price range from different brackets. Assuming that you have all these various speakers that people rely on from different studios, how do those variety of speakers fit in with your specific headphones? So if a person is listening on a Canto or a KEF, and then they want to check their mix with your headphone, like, isn't there going to be a difference in sound signature from what they hear on their tuned speakers versus your headphone?
Sure. If we are talking about just the feel of different sound system, yeah, of course. But keep in mind, a properly tuned studio will have very closely matched frequency response. So we're talking within 3 dB tolerances, or preferably less. And that said, the frequency response by default, the fundamental, will be very closely matched no matter what speaker you're going to go with. They will all perform kind of in a similar way. But of course, every speaker will have its own tonality, its own character, which comes from the different body shapes and sizes and materials used, etc. And that is basically the character. And you might like one character, might not like the other character. But in terms of mixing and delivering a professional, balanced sounding experience, you can do that on. Did we lost each other? Connection problems?
I think so. It's that video keeps going in and out.
Oh, really? That's strange.
You're perfectly fine now.
Oh,
it's really strange.
Well, we'll see how. Anyway, I'm recording audio separately, which will be without interruptions anyway. So perfect. If nothing else, you can always use just the audio with a picture or something. Yeah.
One of the big things about your company that I love is that you guys are happy to support the end user. You're letting the end user change whatever they need to change on your headphone once they buy the accessories from your company, instead of having to send your headphones, back for either repair or for replacing drivers or whatever. We can actually do it ourselves. And it's not a significant cost if we choose to buy separate drivers from you. Can we expect to get the S5X drivers to put into the S4X if we have the S4X?
You can. They will fit in. So it's the same size. It's 50 millimeters. It's the same technology. There's not much of a difference between the drivers, except the impedance, right? And okay, the acoustic tuning of it and so on. But the driver itself will fit into the S4, but the driver itself will also do very little in terms of achieving the S5 sound, because the S5 sound comes from the whole acoustic chamber and all the magic that we did in there. So you can try it. I can tell you that the sound will be brighter. The bass will drop slightly. The mid bass and the low bass, they will kind of go like, whoops, a little bit like that. That is due to the coil being 50 ohms, so it's a little bit different coil that creates a different frequency response, obviously. But in terms of tuning, the difference between the 4 and the 5 is not just the speaker. It's the speaker plus the ear pads plus the flow resistor, which is a protector. When the backside is again vented in a different way. And also there is a little controlled vent between the back of the speaker and the front of the speaker, which also creates some interesting acoustics. So all of that together works, as I mentioned before, to translate an immersive mix. A speaker on its own, it's just a speaker. It will just change the acoustic characteristics of the Series 4, but it will not make them into Series 5.
So ultimately, if we want to get the S5X, we need to buy the S5X to get the full experience.
Yeah. Well, technically, you could buy all the spare parts and assemble it on your own, although there is no tutorial for it. We don't sell this as a DIY kit. But if you have some skills and common sense about audio, I think you could pull it off and put those together. The downside would be there is no quality control. So if at the end they don't perform as we would like them to, you will just never know that. Yeah.
You mentioned quality control, and this is one of the issues that comes up from hi-fi companies and Chinese brands. It comes up with American brands. It's something that a lot of companies seem to struggle with.
Mm. I'm sorry, I've lost you for a second.
Were you able to hear my question?
Partially.
Okay. So let's see if I can remember this now. What process do you and your company implement to guarantee, or to try to guarantee, that each headphone that's shipped out is meeting your quality control standards?
Yeah, all right. So we have these in two separate brackets. So one would be the inbound control, which means whatever comes into the manufacturing process is checked. We used to call TEC documents, which is one of the ISO standard documents. Basically, I think it says technical entering conditions, which is a specification for every single part, including like a little screw. What are the acceptable tolerances of it? And it's described and pictured and so on. So that is one side. Everything that comes in is checked, and then only the good parts are moved into the actual warehouse for going then following to production. That's one part. The second part is then the final quality control of the final product, which once it's ready at the end of the manufacturing line, it goes to our little lab, and over there, a technician would obviously measure everything. So we would measure the matching of the drivers, the left and right, which is also done at the input stage, but then again checked at the end. All the mechanics would be checked for squeaking and stuff, anything like that. The cable is verified, the connection is verified, and finally the graph is then printed, the chart that you get in the box, it's signed off. And that's how we've been doing this for 5 years, and we have really, really low return rates or warranty rates or whatever. So I think we've been doing that good. The biggest issue with us, and I think with other companies as well, is how to make sure that whatever you've just quality controlled and passed will work somewhere down the road, meaning like 2 years from now, 3 years from now, because that is really hard to test. So there will always be some units that will die somewhere down the road and will come back. On a side note, we offer 5 years of warranty for any parts, with the exception of ear pads and the cable. And that is due to the nature of exposure, of ear pads to just human skin and stuff, and cables to just being torn around unconsciously. But it's then impossible to check if the cable was actually assembled in a wrong way. If it works for 3 months, if it works for half a year, it's almost impossible to say, hey, there was a manufacturer error that came to life 2 years later. So the cable and ear pads are outside of the limited warranty, but everything else, including the speakers, it's in warranty for 5 years, which I think till this day is still one of the greatest, if not the greatest, warranty of any headphone manufacturer.
Yeah, I think it is. Monoprice or Monolith claim to have a 5-year warranty, but you have no idea what the warranty actually covers. Yours is probably the longest I've found so far. But does your warranty have a tiered process? For example, there's at least a couple companies where the first year they cover everything, and then the second year and the subsequent years you have to pay like 75% of the cost or 50% of the cost, plus shipping, plus the manufacturing or the assembly in order to warranty something.
Now we cover everything the first year, including shipping. Then we only covered shipping back So after 2 years, you would need to ship them in at your own cost, but we'll ship it back again without a problem. So far, we've been in this like for 6 years now, and we haven't turned down basically any warranty that is reasonable. Even if it's been 3 years or 4 years or 5 years, we just we take this in and we take care of the customer first. But hey, who knows what the future holds for us? I hope that we can continue to deliver this really good customer service going forward. But yeah, technically speaking, yeah, we're covering all the parts for 5 years, and the shipping is excluded after 2 years. Yeah.
So I'm going to keep asking around this issue because I think it's so important, especially in these financial times and people buying these, very expensive headphones and speakers. So 4 years, let's say 4 years comes and one of the drivers fails in the S5X or the S4X, not due to any problem or fault by the user. They send it back at their, they pay for the shipping back to you guys. You will repair what needs to be repaired without charge and then send it back to the user.
Yes.
That's fantastic. I don't think I've seen any other company guarantee that type of warranty. And I think that's probably leading as far as audiophile companies are concerned. Can I ask you why?
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that technically speaking, headphones are a fairly simple device. And there's very few components that can die on their own just by using them. A speaker will die eventually. It will get used and there will be mechanical stuff eventually, yeah. But it will last a long time if you're using it at reasonable volume, right? So the main thing that we get, and we still repair that in warranty, we don't really complicate things, is a squashed membrane, which is what happens if you do that on your headphones. If you're pushing them against your ears, now the air in here that is trapped has nowhere to go. So obviously the air pressure builds up and presses against the membrane, and the membrane is like really, really, really thin. So it starts to crumble a little bit, like if you would crumble a paper. And eventually, over time, those cracks will get bigger and bigger and bigger, and the sound will start to go down. And also the heat will start to build up in the coil because of mechanical friction there, and essentially it will completely die. That is like 9 out of 10 warranties that we did on speakers is related to that, which is actually user a misuse by user, but we just we repair it and send it back and say thank you, because it's I think companies should be more open to repairing stuff, even though technically they are not required to. That's just, I know, my personal opinion.
So is the reason why you have such a long and progressive warranties because you are fairly comfortable fixing any issues that come up with your headphones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Again, I don't see much problems with them, and the ones that do happen are fairly big share of those is actually just being misused. And as long as this is not, as long as our warranty is not being exploited, then we are fine taking that and taking care of our customers in this way. Because to tell you the truth, it's not like a customer would do this kind of things intentionally, or just being unconscious and cautious. It's just that these things happen in a natural way. Somewhere along the way, headphones are exposed to all sorts of situations. And I don't think that, just by being human, you should be penalized by that. It's a cost that is there, and I understand that huge corporations are afraid of this cost. It can get quite high, obviously. But in terms of professional audio, where we are, professional users usually take care of their gear quite well, and we have like really minimal, warranty claims basically. So I don't see a problem making sure that everybody feels confident with the choice that they've made. So going with OLLO for the 5 years period that the warranty is, promised.
Well, the way I look at it is that if you're sourcing good materials and you have competent people assembling your gear, and then you take care in what you're doing, I think you can probably have faith in the fact that you've done a really good job, and you don't really have to worry about people suffering poor workmanship. And then you can treat your customers with respect and treat them as if they are in fact lifelong, life-term customers for you.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's the kind of gist I get, and I have received from the get-go when I first found your company and first heard your headphones, is that you guys have always been receptive, at least to me, about feedback and willing to discuss whatever issues are coming up or what your ideas are, what other people's ideas are. Do you find that sort of collaboration helpful in directing your company?
Oh, that is like the source of everything we do, right? So, for example, over here on the desk, I have a tactile transducer, which was sent in by a customer. Just hey, why don't you try this? And we've developed upon that idea, and now we have an amplifier, which I can't show yet. There's a full range of things happening based on the feedback, mostly on the feedback. It's not like we have think tanks in here and we're thinking what we can do. It's more like we're open to feedback and opinions and ideas, and we build on those as we go.
I have a question from one of my subscribers, and I'm going to just quote him.
Yeah.
He says, quote, "The metal headbands on the S4R and the S4X clang quite loudly. Have there been any efforts to fix that issue? Also, are there any plans for the development of a new headphone?" But we've already discussed that here.
Yes. So obviously on the S5 model, there is a different headband structure. Well, firstly, it's not a strap anymore, not an automatically or elastic strap anymore. We have this little rods on the sides, which are basically adjustment rods, and the strap is also acting as a damper, which is in direct contact with the steel. And the structure is just completely different on top. So now you can kind of touch it if you want to, and it will ring basically nothing. So same as any other. In terms of the S4 model, yeah, if you touch it, if you bang it, there will be a slight ring to it. And yeah, that is there. It's something that honestly we didn't pick it up in the research phase. It only came back to us with the feedback, and it's now fixed with the 5th edition. Yeah.
Your experience with professionals is going to be very different compared to audiophiles, because audiophiles have a very different perspective of how they want to enjoy music, whereas professionals are more concerned about getting the right mix.
Yeah. Sure.
If an audiophile is trying to set up a studio for themselves, or they want to get the best listening experience for the music that they've collated, what do you think would you recommend with your headphone, the S5X or the S4X or the R? Like, what components do you recommend people get to experience your headphone to its fullest?
Well, I don't think I can really recommend any company or any specific model of amplification or ADDA conversion or whatever. What I can say is that personally, I've been using RME interfaces for quite some time, and I'm very happy with those. What is the best? I don't know. It's a matter of taste. It's a matter of budget. It's everything else but my opinion. So whatever you think is suitable, you give it a try. Yeah.
So you're not suggesting in any way that a person has to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars on a DAC and then more hundreds of dollars on an amplifier. Just whatever works for you is going to work with this headphone.
It's a really cool debate that I'm having this kind of debates basically every few days with our ambassadors and endorsers and so on. The music industry is just, it's a technical industry. There's a lot of technology, but on the flip side, it's a completely creative and emotional industry. Right? So experience music. First of all, you need to enjoy the artist, enjoy the song. You need to understand the song, the background of the song, the meaning of the song. I mean, the whole concept. And only then you can maybe dive into, is this technically perfect, right? So I think we should all take a step back and respect the artistry that there is. It takes years, decades, to develop the skill and talent that these artists are putting into their music. And we should appreciate that more, I think, more than just, a new, pretty cool DSP processing that makes something a little bit different. But that's my personal take on this matter. So I'm fully for exploring, fully for enjoying, and the journey of finding the right gear, finding the right headphones, the right cables, right, amplification that suits your needs and your style. That is actually the experience that you want to live or relive again and again. It's not so much about finding the perfect thing, at least in my opinion.
From all the feedback that you've received from your customers, is there something that you found to be incredibly helpful in either addressing an issue or navigating your company in a different direction?
Yesterday I've been talking to Von George, a great artist. Actually, we'll have a video released soon, just an interview like we're doing over here. So Von George and I talked about how he and his community experience all audio. And the more we dived into this kind of philosophical debate, the more I see that a company is only as good as your basically last experience with it. And it's not necessarily a technical experience. It could be just a support ticket. It could be a nice comment or a kind comment, appropriate comment on social media and stuff like that. So going forward, I think that Von shed some light into where I should try and push this brand to. So being very open, communicative, available, respectful, obviously, and also have bigger ears than mouth. So listen more, experience more, and just basically learn and enjoy the journey of just being here, creating something for professional people, not just them, of course, also audiophiles. And, having this transaction of knowledge and emotions going back and forth. I think that is worth creating, and that is worth, waking up in the morning and getting into this office.
Looking out into the future, you've just completed another headphone, and you have a series of headphones and other gear that now it seems like discontinued, because originally a couple of years ago you had kind of a seed amplifier or a bass enhancer, whatever that was. I think I saw on your website a few years ago. what's coming up around the pike, or what do you dream your company being able to do in 5, 6, 7 years? Something that's different from headphones.
Something that's different from headphones. Well, that is an interesting question. To tell you the truth, we are a small company. Still, we've been around for 6 years now, but we are still a very small company, and I don't see how we are going to get like Apple size or whatever. This is going to be or I envision OLLO as being a fairly small professional company. Saying that, we will stick to professional audio. What that entails, I'm not sure going 5 years forward. But what I can say is that the amplification is in the making. I can say that the tactile experience is also in development. So that is for sure coming out. And I can without a doubt say that at some point we will also release something for live audio, and maybe somewhere down the road, which is just a maybe, something for the hifi community. So essentially, if you would look at OLLO as a whole, we would have these like recording situations, then we would have stereo mixing, then now we have the immersive mixing experience. At some point, we'll have to add the live performance, and then of course the peripherals for that, meaning amplification that can deliver good monitoring on stage, amplification that can deliver good mixing results, etc., and so on. That's as close as I can get to the vision of the future. Yeah.
It's fair enough. I have the last few questions. If you had the opportunity to ask your customers or your prospective customers a question that would help you in understanding where to guide your company or how to address concerns, is there any type of questions that you would pose to help you in that regard?
Well, so basically, what would I want to hear? Not want to hear, but what would I be interested in knowing about the thoughts of our customers? That is, it would be a lot. Well, I can tell you that when I do interviews, most of the time we start with a technical thing, and we end with the emotional component. But I think that the biggest value for me, or the insight, would be in understanding where their vision lies. So, for example, if the audio engineering world is moving to immersive or whatever down the road, what are their thoughts about it, and how convinced they are on this path? Because truth be told, we do need some time to develop something. We need time to research our services or products in order to support creators, artists, engineers, and so on. So knowing what they're thinking, kind of ahead of time, is something that would bring immense value to me personally and to the company. Meaning, if any one of your listeners wants to share his or her idea about the future of audio, either in live, either in recording, either in mixing, or in hi-fi or whatever, those kind of insights are really, really welcomed.
In the same vein, and this is the last question I have for you, but in the same vein, is there any aspect of a review of your products you wish could be better or could be different? For example, I mean, obviously all companies hope that when their product is being reviewed, a reviewer will emphasize the positives and not to harp too much on the negatives. But is there anything about your headphones that you would like people to be aware of more often? You want reviewers to actually talk about this particular aspect of your headphones that hasn't really gotten much attention?
Honestly, I would like to build a company or a brand that is truthful, that is honest in every way. And I think I've been, with my team, of course, quite successful of doing that. So what bothers me with reviewers the most is not about the negatives of our headphones. Where there's a negative and you talk about it, that's completely fine. And I think you should do that. That's the educational part that you promise to your viewers, which is fantastic. What bothers me the most is not fully understanding what's going on in a product or the intention of the product, and then essentially doing misinforming the public without doing your homework properly. That is something that hurts. So yeah, there it is. It's now going to be public, but yeah, that is something that hurts me when a reviewer says something that is absolutely not true in a technical way, not true, technically not possible, and stuff like that. That kind of sparkles the engine in me, going, that's so wrong. That is really painting the wrong picture about the product, me personally, or the brand. So that is the part that I'm most fearful of.
Now, since you brought this up, this is a very interesting comment. I hadn't thought about it before, without mentioning anybody in specific, but could you tell me the issue that really triggered you, that you thought was unfair or not accurate?
Yeah. Well, the most painful stuff, I don't want to expose too much as any particular reviewer, but it hurts when the technical data, which is basically available either on our webpage or it's in the charts. It says on the chart, when you open it in the box, it says exactly what standards were used. It says exactly the amount of smoothing, if there is any smoothing. It says everything is very, very detailed, way more than any other company out there. I'll just put it plain and simple. But then explaining that or saying that it's not there where it obviously is, that's just misinforming. It would fall into the category of fake news, basically, for me personally. It's just not true, and that hurts. It's not just hurting, us as a company, which is not your job to protect us, but it hurts potential buyers, consumers, people, engineers, lovers of music, of experiencing us in the right way. Maybe it could even make them say, oh, all right, I'm not going with this company. I'm not going to even try it. And just based on, some review which was misinforming. And that's not right to whomever's community you're addressing. If I could, put that in a short answer, that would kind of sum it up. Yeah.
Well, you can't do anything about people who go out of their way or purposefully misstate measurements or misstate the patent truth that is available to the public.
Well, I don't think it's on purpose. I just think it's the lack of knowledge, or maybe just the time or whatever, and just making assumptions based on what you know from other companies, based on what you know from other products that you've maybe reviewed before. Right? You're just making an assumption, a jump to a new brand and a new product. That is the part that is the most concerning in terms of quality of reviewers being out there.
If you had a question for me, I mean, just as an individual reviewer, just as who I am,
yeah.
you may have watched at least your own headphone reviews.
Yeah, I did.
Is there a question you want to pose to me? You think that I might be able to answer or give you some insight on anything, or not? I mean, that's perfectly fine too.
No, a question for you. I mean, if it would be a question to all the reviewers, basically. right? So when you started reviewing stuff, right? Why do you think you were intrigued by doing reviews? Why do you think you have to dive deep into stuff? You have to understand stuff better than an average consumer. Why did you start that? Where is this passion coming from? That's the part that I'd really like to understand, to kind of get into the mindset of a reviewer.
Assuming that your question also includes me,
yeah,
I can answer for myself. I can say,
yeah.
What prompted me to start reviewing is the fact that I was a consumer for many years, and I felt like I was misled. And I recall the moment in the video, the review, that finally cracked for me. It made me realize I had just wasted a ton of money, and this person had repeatedly abused my trust that I had placed in them. And I became very angry about it. And I had a whole lot of equipment, and I never took the time to really think about the things that people were saying about that equipment, other than giving it praise. And so that was the impetus for me to say to myself, I can't be the only person who's walked down this road feeling like they've been misled by purpose or by accident. And I took it upon myself to just put my views out there. I didn't think I would get more than one subscriber. And at some point it became what it is now, which is still a small channel. But I take pride in at least being able to provide information from that very specific perspective, which is I'm a consumer first. And so I want to enjoy the things I pay money for, because I pay money for 99% of my gear. And I want other people to also enjoy what they get, but they should know what they're getting. The last thing that a person should do when they buy anything, whether it's affordable or expensive, is buy it under the false pretense that they're getting something fantastic. It may not be fantastic for them. It could be a variety of reasons why. It could be because, a DAC has all the great measurements that you could possibly imagine. It's the best. But when you come right down to it, if it doesn't have a feature that you think you might use, you're wasting money, because you're not going to be able to use it to the fullest potential that you intended. Or if it's a headphone, if somebody says, I love the Harman target curve, I love the AKG headphones because that's to them true neutral, and now somebody's going out and trying to buy it, they may be missing out on certain aspects like detail and soundstage and overall clarity that they may not get from an AKG K371, that they might get from a completely different brand, and they need to know. So that's my passion, and that's why I dig into it, is because more information is never a bad thing. Having accurate information to the best of your ability and providing more information always gives people the option of either ignoring that information or using it and propelling them towards more investigation. I have personally always been more science leaning. I'm not a scientist. I don't understand particle physics, but I do appreciate the methodology that goes into making a hypothesis, going through the process of disproving yourself before reaching a conclusion. And I think that's just the most fascinating way to review something. You look at it, you look at the claims, you figure out where things are going, you state the evidence as you see it, and then you make a conclusion. And if it's a great product, it's a great product. It'll stand by itself without any help from me. And if it's a terrible product, look, everybody will know it's a terrible product just by the way it functions. And I think you and I have a meeting of the minds as far as that goes, where I'm not trying to propel any particular company. I just love the products. I love your products. I love the way that your company handles criticisms. I love the way that your company addresses customers. I think you are progressive in the way that you treat potential customers, not just current customers. And all of that combined is something worth considering alongside your headphone. People may not like whatever it is that they get from your headphone, but they can't deny that your company offers something that others don't.
Yeah, that was really beautifully said. a wonderful kind of mission you're on, Vishad. So I can just applaud to what you just said and fully agree. There is a meet of the minds, obviously. I think the future will go down this path, to maybe move away from the audio a little bit. We are bombarded with a lot of stuff and advertising money and so on. And we really don't trust anything or anyone anymore, less and less. So that is exactly the void for really cool reviewers and really cool companies as well. That is the area or the space or the landscape, if you will, of where I would like to be. You asked me about the future going 5 years forward. Yeah, there's this technical kind of hierarchy of products, but I would like to be on a landscape of open-minded people, of having nice relationship, and again moving this kind of having a debate, a dialogue, moving information back and forth, knowledge back and forth between everyone involved, which is obviously it's our technical personnel, so just technicians. There's our sales guys, right? The sales part. Then there's a final consumer who's just maybe listening to music. Then there's professional audio engineers, and obviously there are reviewers as well. So all of these kind of needs to have its own ecosystem, I think. And we'll get there. Unfortunately, my English vocabulary is a little short to get into real philosophical debates. But I have a feel that you, Vishad, exactly where this is going. And I'm happy to be a part of that journey, even if it's just your personal journey, but also the journey of let's call it the future of audio, to keep it simple.
Well, thank you very much for that. It's I'm glad to find small companies like yours that excel so much in all the right ways, particularly with the way that customers are treated and the way that products are assembled. I think it's becoming harder and harder to find for various reasons.
Various reasons, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Rock. I don't want to take up any more of your time. You've been very generous giving me this much. I thank you for all the time you've devoted to this. I think this is the second or maybe even the third interview you and I have had over the last several years. Yeah. So I appreciate that.
You're welcome. Anytime. Anytime. I'm very open. If I can squeeze the time in, not just to reviewers, I'm very open to anybody, either a customer, either a potential customer, or just somebody who's enjoying audio and want to talk with me, pick my brain or whatever. Go ahead, reach out through our email or social media, and we can always book a call. It's always a two-way exchange. I'm getting more than I'm giving usually, which is fascinating. So yeah, welcome to have a call with me anytime you want.
Great. I hope people take you up on that offer.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you very much again, Rock. This was a pleasure.
Beautiful. Thank you as well. Cheers.
Cheers. Take care.